My name is Grace. I'm 30 years old. I run a moderately successful online branding consultancy I built from the ground up with sweat, tears, and an unhealthy amount of caffeine. I'm not a millionaire, but I'm comfortable, I'm stable, I'm proud of what I've achieved. My brother, Damien, is 35. He's a lawyer at a prestigious firm downtown, the kind of place with floor-to-ceiling windows and an intimidatingly minimalist lobby. To the outside world, he is the epitome of success. Sharp suits, a sleek German car, and a confident smile that could charm a snake out of its skin. He was always the golden child, the one my parents bragged about, the one destined for greatness. Everything came to a head last Tuesday. I was in the middle of a client meeting, mapping out a Q4 marketing strategy, when my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Damien. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another one of his gentle reminders about a non-existent debt he felt I owed him. But something about the subject line made my stomach clench. Formal pre-action correspondence regarding breach of implied agreement and infliction of emotional distress. My blood ran cold. I excused myself from the meeting, my heart hammering against my ribs, and locked myself in my office. My hands were shaking as I opened the email. It wasn't a normal email. It wasn't a message from a brother. It was a meticulously crafted, 5-page letter, complete with legal letterhead he'd obviously designed himself, filled with jargon and thinly veiled threats. He was formally putting me on notice. He intended to sue me, his own sister. The reason? For causing him severe emotional distress and financial hardship by refusing to give him any more money. To understand how a relationship can curdle this badly, you have to understand our history. Damien and I used to be close. Genuinely close. Growing up, he was my hero. He was protective, funny, and brilliant. When he got into law school, I was his biggest cheerleader. I was so incredibly proud of him. The change was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. It started when he landed the job at the big firm. Suddenly, he was surrounded by people who came from old money, people for whom a weekend trip to Aspen wasn't a luxury, but a regular occurrence. And Damien, who had always been ambitious, felt an intense pressure to keep up. He wasn't just keeping up with the Joneses, he was trying to become one of them. He called it investing in his image. That was the phrase he used to justify everything. The luxury apartment with a view he couldn't afford? You have to project success to be successful, Grace. The designer suits that cost more than my monthly rent? It's a uniform. It shows clients I'm serious. The brand new BMW, leased at an astronomical rate? It's a networking tool. You can't pull up to a client meeting in a 10-year-old Honda. He was a master at making money, a rainmaker at his firm who could close deals with astonishing skill. But he was even better at spending it. Money flowed through his hands like water. He lived a life funded by his next paycheck, always one bad month away from total collapse. And that's where I came in. It started small, so small I barely registered it. Hey Grace, can you spot me a couple hundred until Friday? Just a bit short on cash flow. A week later it was 500. The condo fees came out earlier than I expected. Then it was 1,000. Just need to cover a client dinner, my corporate card is maxed out. The amounts grew, and so did the frequency. But the true insidious nature of it all wasn't just in the asking, it was in the framing. He never just asked for a handout. He was too clever for that. He called them family investments or temporary bridge loans. He made it sound like I was a partner in his grand ascent to the top of the legal world. And after every single transfer, without fail, he would send a carefully worded thank you email. At the time, I thought it was just him being formal, a bit quirky. I'd read them, smile, and archive them. Dearest Grace, just confirming receipt of the $500. This will be instrumental in resolving the overhead costs for the Thompson case. I'll be sure to note your contribution. Best, Damien. Thank you for the $5,000 transfer. Your support in this phase of my career development is invaluable. Consider it a crucial investment in the family's future. Regards, Damien. I saw them as thank you notes. I was a fool. He wasn't thanking me. He was building a case. He was creating a false paper trail, brick by insidious brick, turning my love and generosity into a weapon he could one day use against me. The manipulation wasn't just financial, it was psychological, a masterclass in emotional warfare. He never resorted to crude threats, not at first. He was far more sophisticated. He would weave our parents into it, not by saying Mom and Dad will be disappointed, but with a surgeon's precision. I was just telling Dad about how you've been my rock through this, he'd say over the phone, his voice laced with sincerity. He was so proud to hear how we're supporting each other. It means the world to them, you know. How could I say no after that? He tied his professional reputation to my wallet. I was just telling the senior partners about my brilliant sister who runs her own company. He'd mentioned casually. I told them how you've been helping me manage my portfolio. It really adds to my credibility, makes me seem more established. You wouldn't want to make me look like a liar, would you? He made me responsible for his image, his success, his very standing in his world. Saying no felt like an act of sabotage. As my own business grew, his demands became more relentless. The harassment evolved. The charming, pleading texts became a constant barrage. My phone was a source of perpetual dread. 7 a.m. Morning, Grace. Hope you have a great day. Just wondering if you had a chance to think about that thing we discussed? The quarterly property tax is due Friday. 10 a.m. Just in a meeting. Super stressful. Thinking about how much easier it would be if I didn't have these financial pressures hanging over me. 1 p.m. Did you get my earlier messages? Starting to get a little worried. 4 p.m. You're the only hope I have, Grace. I'm counting on you. 8 p.m. I don't understand why you're ignoring me. After everything I've done for you. 11 p.m. I guess family doesn't mean anything to you anymore. Mom and Dad would be heartbroken if they knew how you were treating me. Then came the calls. Late night calls where his voice would shift dramatically. He'd start with a desperate, cracking whisper, telling me he was on the verge of ruin, that his career was hanging by a thread. When that didn't work, his tone would turn cold, sharp, and menacing. You have no idea the kind of pressure I'm under. You're sitting pretty in your little home office while I'm out here in the real world, fighting battles you can't even imagine. The worst was when he started showing up unannounced. One time I was in the middle of a crucial presentation with a new client at my office. Suddenly, the door opened, and there was Damien, dressed impeccably, but with a wild, desperate look in his eyes. He put on a big, fake smile and said, "Sorry to interrupt, just had to drop off some family papers for my brilliant sister." He made a show of hugging me, whispering in my ear, "We need to talk, now." My clients exchanged awkward glances. The entire meeting was derailed. I was mortified, my professionalism shattered in an instant. Another time he showed up at my house at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. I was in my pajamas, watching a movie, finally feeling relaxed for the first time all week. The doorbell rang incessantly until I answered it. He pushed past me, pacing my living room like a caged tiger. "I just lost a huge client. It's all falling apart. I need $20,000. Not as a loan, as an investment. I'll pay you back double in 6 months." I was living on a minefield. Every conversation felt like a deposition. Every word I said scrutinized for weakness. My anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't sleep, constantly replaying his words in my head. I started screening my calls, my stomach lurching every time my phone buzzed. I felt unsafe in my own home, in my own office. The person who was once my protector had become my tormentor. The stress was a physical weight, a constant ache in my chest. I was losing myself, and I knew something had to break. The breaking point arrived last month. It was a Tuesday evening. I was just finishing up work when my phone rang. It was Damien. I let it go to voicemail, my standard procedure. A minute later, a text came through. "Pick up. It's an emergency." Against my better judgment, I called him back. His voice was breathless, manic with a terrifying kind of excitement. "I've found it! The perfect place!" he exclaimed without so much as a hello. "It's a penthouse suite in the new waterfront development. It's a statement piece, Grace. The kind of place where you host partners, where deals are made. It's a game changer. The down payment is due in 2 weeks." I stayed silent, waiting for the inevitable. "It's a bit steep," he continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "but it's the best investment we could ever make in my career. I just need a little help with the deposit, $100,000. I almost laughed. It was so completely and utterly detached from reality. $100,000. As if I had that kind of money just lying around. A casual sum to be tossed at his latest whim. For the first time in months, the fear was replaced by a cold, hard anger. The fog of guilt and obligation that had clouded my judgment for so long finally began to clear. "No," I said. My voice was quiet, but it felt like the loudest word I had ever spoken. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "What? What did you just say?" I said, "No, Damien," I repeated, my voice stronger this time. "I can't. I won't. I am not your personal bank anymore. Your lifestyle is your problem, not mine." The switch flipped. The charming, desperate brother was gone, replaced by a monster. "No?" he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "After everything? After all the support I've given you? The encouragement? You're going to turn your back on me now, when I'm on the verge of something huge?" "What support, Damien?" I shot back, the words pouring out of me. "The support? Of draining my bank account? The encouragement of harassing me at all hours of the day and night? You haven't supported me. You've used me." "You selfish, ungrateful bitch," he screamed into the phone, his voice raw with fury. "You're just like everyone else. You see someone succeeding, and you want to tear them down. You have all this money from your stupid little business, and you're too cheap to help your own family." "My business is not stupid, and my money is not yours," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "This conversation is over. Don't call me for money again." Before he could respond, I hung up. And then, I did something I should have done a year ago. I blocked his number, I blocked his email, I blocked him on every social media platform. I erected a digital wall, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of peace. It was a short-lived peace. His final words before I hung up echoed in my mind. "You will regret this." I didn't know then just how far he would go to make that a reality. A week passed in blissful silence. No calls, no texts, no unexpected appearances. I started to sleep through the night. The knot of anxiety in my stomach began to loosen. I thought, naively, that he had finally gotten the message. I thought it was over. Then came the email. Reading it was a surreal experience. It was like watching my brother, my own flesh and blood, perform a legal dissection on our entire relationship, twisting every act of kindness into a contractual obligation. He wasn't my brother anymore. He was a plaintiff's attorney, and I was the defendant. The letter was a masterpiece of manipulative legal fiction. He didn't just whine about emotional distress. His argument was far more cunning, far more diabolical. He claimed that my consistent financial support over the years had established an implied agreement, or a continuous financial relationship. He argued that I had become an integral part of his financial planning, a de facto business partner. And then came the smoking gun. He had attached every single one of his thank you emails as exhibits. Exhibit A, confirmation of $2, $500 investment. Exhibit B, acknowledgement of $5,000 for career development. Each one was presented as evidence that these were not gifts, but transactions, parts of an ongoing business arrangement. His argument was that my sudden and malicious termination of this support constituted a breach of this implied contract. He claimed this breach had caused him not only, quote, severe emotional and psychological distress, but also tangible financial damages. He alleged that he had made career and financial decisions, like putting in the offer on the penthouse, based on the reasonable expectation of my continued support. My refusal, he claimed, had jeopardized his professional standing and caused him immense public humiliation. The most chilling paragraph was the one that laid out the threat in cold, hard terms. Based on the established pattern of consistent financial support and our related correspondence, a strong legal argument can be made that an implied contract was formed. Your abrupt and unilateral withdrawal from this long-standing arrangement constitutes a material breach of this contract. This breach has directly resulted in significant financial losses and has been the proximate cause of severe emotional distress. Be advised that unless you agree to reinstate this support and provide immediate compensation for damages incurred, I will be left with no alternative but to seek remedy through formal legal action. My first reaction was shock, a deep, physical shock that left me breathless. I read it again and then a third time, the words blurring on the screen. It couldn't be real. This was a joke, a sick, twisted joke. But it wasn't. The meticulous detail, the attached exhibits, the cold, formal language, it was all too real. And the shock quickly gave way to a wave of nausea as the full implication of his actions washed over me. He had been planning this. This wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. This was premeditated. For years, while I thought I was helping my brother, he was methodically building a cage around me, using my own generosity as the bars. Every thank you, every carefully chosen word was a calculated move in a long game I didn't even know I was playing. He had turned my love into a legal trap. The fear was overwhelming, but underneath it, something else was stirring. A white-hot, righteous fury. How dare he? How dare he twist my kindness into a weapon? How dare he try to sue me for the very distress he had inflicted upon me for years? The absurdity of it was staggering. He was suing me for the emotional fallout of his own abusive behavior. The first people I called were my parents, David and Helen. I needed support. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. I forwarded them the email and called them, my hands trembling. Their reaction broke my heart. "Oh, Grace, honey," my mom Helen said, her voice fraught with worry. "This is just awful. He's clearly not thinking straight. He's under so much pressure." "Pressure?" I choked out. "Mom, he's threatening to sue me." I know, my dad, David, interjected, his tone one of weary resignation. "But you know how he gets. He's just lashing out. Why don't you just give him a little something to calm him down, just to make this go away? He's your brother, after all." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Make it go away? You want me to give in to blackmail? Dad, did you read the email? He's been planning this. He's using my own help against me." Language like blackmail isn't helpful, my mom chided gently. "This is a family matter, a business dispute. We need to keep the peace. Can't you two just work it out for the family?" They didn't get it, or they didn't want to. In their eyes, Damien was still the golden boy who had lost his way, and I was the stable one who should be more understanding. They saw a business dispute, a squabble over money. They couldn't see the years of calculated manipulation, the psychological warfare, the sheer malice behind his threat. They wanted me to keep the peace by setting myself on fire to keep him warm. I felt utterly and completely alone. My next call was to a lawyer. I found a highly rated litigator, a man named Mr. Covington, and booked an emergency consultation. I walked into his office feeling like a victim, terrified and ashamed. I laid out the whole sordid story, my voice cracking as I recounted the years of harassment, culminating in the threatening email. Mr. Covington listened patiently, his expression unreadable. He read the email and its exhibits, his eyes scanning the pages with an unnerving focus. When he finally looked up, I expected pity. I expected a long, complicated explanation of how much trouble I was in. Instead, he laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was a short, sharp bark of disbelief. "Wow," he said, shaking his head. "In 20 years of practice, I've seen some shameless things, but this is a contender for the Hall of Fame." He leaned forward, his demeanor shifting from analytical to reassuring. "Let me be crystal clear, Qley," he said, his voice firm. "He doesn't have a case. Not even close. What he's attempting here is a flagrant abuse of the legal process, an implied contract for ongoing, unconditional financial support between family members. In the absence of a signed, written agreement, no judge in the country would take that seriously. His exhibits are meaningless. They're thank you notes. A wave of relief so powerful, it almost made me dizzy washed over me. However," he continued, his expression turning serious again, "that doesn't mean he can't make your life miserable. He can still file the lawsuit. It would be expensive and stressful for you to defend, even if you're guaranteed to win. It's a classic bully tactic, weaponizing the process itself to harass you into submission. He's counting on you being too scared and too exhausted to fight." He looked me straight in the eye. "So we're not going to play his game. We're going to end it." Life has changed dramatically in the last 3 months. Following Mr. Covington's advice was the single best decision I have ever made. The first thing he did was draft a cease and desist letter so ferocious it could have stripped paint. It was a work of art. It didn't just refute his claims, it systematically dismantled them, calling his legal theory, quote, frivolous, vexatious, and bordering on professional misconduct. The letter went on the offensive. It detailed, in chronological order, Damien's pattern of harassment, citing the constant calls, the unsolicited appearances, and the manipulative messages as evidence of his intent to cause me distress, not the other way around. But the masterstroke was the final paragraph. Mr. Covington stated in no uncertain terms that if he proceeded to file any legal claim against me, we would not only file a motion for immediate dismissal and seek full reimbursement for all legal fees, but we would also simultaneously file a formal complaint with the State Bar Association for ethical violations, including abuse of legal process and conduct unbecoming of an officer of the court. We attached a draft of the bar complaint to the letter. We sent it to his work email and his personal email and sent a hard copy via certified mail to his office. The result? Crickets. Absolute deafening silence. The threat of a bar complaint was the silver bullet. His entire career, his entire identity, was built on his status as a lawyer. The risk of a formal investigation, of having his name dragged through the mud with the very body that gave him his license to practice, was a threat he wasn't willing to face. The lawsuit vanished into thin air. It was, as Mr. Covington had suspected, a hollow, desperate bluff. But the story doesn't end there. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that Damien's carefully constructed world was beginning to crumble. Apparently someone, I still have no idea who, and I honestly don't want to, sent an anonymous tip to the managing partners at his firm. The tip didn't mention the lawsuit threat, but it did provide a concise factual summary of Damien's financial instability and his pattern of aggressively soliciting funds from family under false pretenses. The firm, being the risk-averse entity it is, launched a quiet internal review of his client accounts and expense reports. I don't know the full details, but the rumor is they found irregularities. Nothing illegal, but enough to raise serious red flags about his judgment and stability. He wasn't fired, but he was formally reprimanded and, I'm told, is now being monitored so closely he can't buy a coffee without submitting a receipt in triplicate. The path to partnership he was so obsessed with has been permanently closed. Without my funding, his lavish lifestyle imploded with spectacular speed. The BMW was repossessed. He was forced to break the lease on his ridiculously expensive apartment and move into a small, nondescript unit in a less fashionable part of town. The fall from grace has been swift, and from what I hear, deeply humiliating. As for my parents, David and Helen, our relationship is still strained, but it's healing. When I sat them down and calmly explained, with Mr. Covington's letter as a reference, the legal trap Damien had laid for me, the reality of the situation finally broke through their denial. Seeing the cold, hard proof that their son had premeditated a legal attack on their daughter shocked them to their core. They finally understood it wasn't a simple argument. They stopped pressuring me. They offered to get Damien help, financial counseling, therapy. But he refused, blaming everyone but himself for his downfall. That, I think, was the final straw that made them see him for who he truly is. I have had zero contact with my brother. I have no idea if I will ever speak to him again. A part of me mourns the brother I once had, the hero of my childhood. But he is gone. The man who took his place is a stranger, someone I don't know and don't wish to. The constant anxiety that was my companion for years has finally faded. I sleep soundly. I can hear my phone ring without my heart trying to escape my chest. My business is thriving. My home feels like a sanctuary again. I had to go through hell to get here, but I've reclaimed my life. I learned a brutal lesson. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for someone else, is to say no. And sometimes, the only way to deal with a bully who weaponizes the law is to find a better lawyer.